Welcome to the Aegance Offscript Podcast, where we talk to industry leaders who share their stories, insights, and lessons unfiltered and unscripted. I'm your host, Lawrence, and today I'm joined by Daniel Muller, COO of Ideal, a Dubai-based platform using AI and Web3 to turn ideas into reality. Now, Ideal's vision is bold: empower anyone, anywhere to validate, fund, and execute their ideas through decentralized governance and intelligent tooling. Daniel, welcome to the podcast. Great to have you here.
Thank you very much, Lawrence. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, great to have you here. Could you, for the sake of the listeners and the viewers, just provide a bit more context around Ideal, what's in the name, what it is that you guys do, and what are your areas of operations?
Sure. So Ideal, which is spelled idea-l, but we pronounce as Ideal, is a relatively revolutionary project, we believe, which is looking to help people globally with the idea of entrepreneurial enablement. So we think that there is an unnecessarily hard barrier for people to actually get the idea out of their head and into becoming a real life project, something that they can actually take all the way through to becoming a proper company. And so what we try to do at Ideal is we try to enable this process with a mix of clearly artificial intelligence to help people do this at scale, but then also using Web3 and blockchain for a variety of different other additional improvements. But the idea is, no pun intended, the idea is that Ideal will help everybody, no ideas left behind. So it's any idea for any product, for anyone, anywhere in the world.
Yeah, super interesting concept. And you operate at the intersection of AI, Web3, and venture building, three spaces that individually evolve super quickly. How do you decide where to focus and where to say no when everything feels urgent and interconnected?
Great question. Yeah. So I guess from the point of view of our users, who would be considered to be entrepreneurs, people who may not actually feel as if they're entrepreneurs, because everybody has this sort of imposter syndrome, potentially more acute at the very beginning of the process. But what we try to do is we try to guide them through the process from, let's say, A to Z, or from zero to one, or zero to hero, really. People are dissuaded by things like overwhelmingly negative feedback. Ideas are rarely validated before committing time and resources. Many people struggle with resilience and confidence, and few people have the time, network, or cross-disciplinary experience to build alone. And so what we try to do with our products and with our platform is that we try to help unlock all of these, let's say, roadblocks or stumbling blocks that people will face. And we do it in a sort of a very structured and comprehensive manner. And we break it down step by step. Idea also stands for idea, design, execution, accelerate as well. So the very first step is the idea. Our product makes it very simple and easy for people to go through the process of understanding whether their idea is a good idea or a bad idea. If good idea, continue. If not so great, shall we say, refine and develop. And so we try to kind of have this wraparound approach. It can be difficult for users to specifically focus, and so we try to guide.
Have you experienced any challenges around trying to align your ultimate vision across tech, product, and governance?
Challenges? Yes, I would say that we have. Of course, some of these areas which we're building in, we like to think, and I do genuinely believe this, they would be considered to be category defining areas, right? So there isn't a platform that exists that will take people from literally just the idea entry point all the way then through to getting a company live. So that specific product, the specificity of that isn't there. And so what we want to do is we want to make sure that we can try to help enable some of the entrepreneurs and the users to get across these different challenges by overcoming and utilizing some of the tools that we have developed in the AI space to help enable and really kind of accelerate the the level and the size of the support that we can offer. And so challenges in the AI space would be clearly if we're doing a very wide set of opportunity, so to speak. So if it is any product, any industry, one example would be there isn't data about everything which currently potentially doesn't exist, right? So if we're trying to build something which is, let's say, this category defining product of a realization platform, and somebody wants to use it to think about a whole new, currently unexisting product or idea, we need to build our tools and systems to be able to cope with that. And so some of that stuff is what we're doing at the cutting edge interface of AI, which is things around logical inference, probabilistic programming, and then some other parts of evolutionary learning.
You just raised your pre-seed round. What did that process reveal about Ideal's internal priorities? I mean, maybe things that you hadn't fully articulated before.
Yeah, well, I guess we have to live our own talk, right? Like one of our products does come in three very distinct parts, right? So I'll just outline those first. There's a realization platform, which is again category defining. There's a funding platform, which isn't necessarily category defining in and of itself, but attached to that funding platform is something that we're calling a decentralized venture capital fund, and that is a truly specific decentralized venture capital fund, in so much as it is tokenized units of both the GP and the LP structuring. We don't believe anyone's doing this yet at this kind of scale that we're doing, and it's a true fund in that the people who invest into the funds, retail and institutional, when that is subject to later, they will be accessing a full diversified list of investments. But what did it reveal about us when we were doing our own early fundraising? It really forces you to focus. It really makes you spend the time to sit down and hone exactly what it is that you want to do, which I think is extremely useful. You also then get a very strong opportunity to get feedback from users. So we already have what we would describe as it's listed as a version 1, but really it's like a version 0.1 on the Apple App Store and the Google Play Store. And so people have started to use that product. They've started to give us the feedback about what works and what doesn't. And that's great, right? And by rigorously testing your own sort of hypothesis internally, and then externally with some other sort of like capable and vetted folks, the process there allows you to really get quite tight around what it is you really want to do in terms of your product offering, your business model, your revenue model, these types of things, and then also making like some really sort of like, I would say, transformative improvements as well.
And did you find that the raise forced any trade-offs across team, product, or timing?
Well, yes, for sure. Funding is a lifeblood, right? Particularly if you talk about startups, as we would traditionally say in the tech world, which would be just largely software-driven businesses that are aimed at large target markets and hopefully small teams that are trying to be quite agile, develop and scale, right? So in that sense, does it force trade-offs? Did it force trade-offs for us? It did, yes. You clearly have to have a cadence to your tech development process. That was a smaller, I guess, pre-seed, we would describe it. We will be doing another raise as well, and that's coming close to fruition. And then, yeah, you kind of just have to make trade-offs, particularly not only with your funding, but also with the advent of the developing technology as things start to become emergent, particularly in the AI space. This year, we've had some really sort of big improvements, right, that have kind of just dropped, and we need to build those things into our pipeline. So yeah, you have to be very agile and nimble.
Mm-hmm. And how are you managing to balance speed with the depth required to build trust in a decentralized system?
Yeah, I mean, so that is definitely a larger challenge, I would say. So this is really the space of community governance and trust. it is extremely important because we alongside sort of any idea, any product in any industry, any geography. Alongside that, we very much care about two other very highly principled concepts, which are about democratization and decentralization, right? And so I think we can talk about both of these together. But democratization, like equal access to tools, resources, funding, and voting, that's very important. And then decentralization, this is also around what I mentioned earlier about the tokenized investment units, but it's also more than that. It's around the open participation, merit-based support, and transparent processes. And so, how to really do well in developing in those very particular spaces, honestly, it takes quite a bit of time, right? Like it's actually something where you have to invest over the longer term. It's not something that you can all of a sudden acquire, nor should it be, because I don't feel that that would make it a valid or a reasonable proposition. So we have grown out our community bases in the Web3 sense in different parts of the world, where we're starting to constantly re-engage with people. And another example is that every week we run Twitter Spaces on X, the Spaces option, and so far we've had around 20,000 people tune in across the last 9 weeks. We do one a week on different themes, so you have to constantly be trying to talk about things which are relevant and useful, and do it in sort of like an open forum. And again, a lot of this speaks to the newer concepts, which are build your product in public and build your community in public as well.
And running multiple platforms that have multiple moving parts, AI workflows, DAO governance, token infrastructure, I'd imagine that process design is quite critical. How have you approached building the systems that actually allow you to scale rather than slow you down?
Yeah, for sure that we have multiple tracks, and they all need to come together. And if you look from a distance, they can seem quite large and maybe daunting to try and slot them all together. But in actuality, what we're trying to do is we're trying to be very, very pinpointed about what we're doing in the AI, track, in the Web3 track, the governance and community track. We just work very closely internally on a very, very tight basis with our different teams, constantly overlapping in the very sort of like tech development process, agile, stand-up sprints, everything. There is a lot going on. We are still also a typical startup where there is a lot of activity, where people are doing so much dev work and communication and interaction. And then, we end up obviously seeing that things get impacted, right? And then we have to take priority decisions around that.
As you say, in a startup environment, often, you end up wearing many hats, shouldering lots of responsibility. Does automation or AI play any role in your daily operations?
Yeah, so we, in terms of actually the running of the company, everybody is fully expected in sort of like a cultural and strategic manner to have already integrated AI workflows into almost everything they do. And it is very much the case that we won't be moving forward with kind of like crazy decisions like hiring people where we haven't already fully exhausted what we're capable of doing in the automation space. And so that applies to both, obviously, the dev team, coders, and what would be described as like UI UX front end teams as well, but also the operations teams, right? And so that will be operations in terms of infrastructure operations and actually company operations as well. And so we are very much forcing our staff to get on board. I think it is very much the new way of working, and it will become de facto. That if you are not utilizing like this, then you may end up falling off the relevancy scale in terms of your contributions inside corporations and companies. So yes, we are doing as much as possible about productivity gains. The automation side, clearly, in our products, development stack, everything is as automated as much as it can be, and it has to be, just because what we're targeting is we're targeting an end state, which would be, let's say, a true version one with the entire product set available uh, on the app stores for users to use, let's say early next year, um, that will target up to 1 million ideas per year, and if not, I would hope maybe up to 5 million ideas per year, right, at the very early entry point. And so people will flow through the different phases of the idea realization platform. The first entry point is just the idea. The second one is redefinement, redefinition. There is an interactive tool that goes backwards and forwards. We call that part the live feasibility. And then the third part is the co-found in your pocket, which is all the hyper-personalized steps that the user has to take in order to get their idea all the way live into a real company. All of that has to be super reliant on automation in order to be effective at scale. So automation and efficiency is baked into everything. And then clearly the funding decisions as well, again, in an end state, will be agentically decided upon. So that would be selected, evaluated, further interaction, and then offer, opportunity, and then funding. All of these things would be as automated and efficient as would be technically possible.
I mean, it sounds like you're doing your level best to have the broader team adopt automation and workflows for greater efficiency. But are there any internal processes that still feel like they are quite fragile or quite manual in nature?
Yeah, I would say that there are, for sure. Not everything is as dreamlike as we anticipate or would want to get to in sort of some sort of AI utopia. In terms of what isn't working as well as potentially it could work, they would be some of just the back end general operations of the company and of the business. And I think those are things which we're working on where we don't see direct full efficiency. What we end up doing is we end up asking some of our devs to use some of their additional contribution time to help just smoothline some of those processes, right? So we actually, in what we're doing is we're building our own stuff internally for very specific users. We also do have a bit of a mantra internally that we want to try and stop the total number of systems actually that we're using. I don't think it should be that everybody should be just getting every single system. There should always be a requirement to understand whether or not systems are required, subscription basis, things like this. So we do, where possible, do our own dev for internal backend operation systems.
I've spent a fair amount of time in tech startup environments, and I found that you reach a point where tools end up becoming noise, essentially. Too many dashboards, maybe not enough insights. Do you find that's the case? And if so, how do you keep your tech stack coherent and avoid process bloat?
Yeah, of course. It can be very easy for different parts of the team to want to run towards things which they would know and understand from previous, particularly when they come as new team members in to deliver on certain parts. Not all of our team clearly is full-time employees either, right? We make sure that we're kind of very lean and utilizing experts where required. I think in order to keep tech stack lean and avoid process bloat, some of it is actually a cultural thing. It does come from the top, from our senior tech guys. They're very direct about what it is they want and how they want things to look and ship. And so they drive a lot of that agenda. But then also we try to stay very tight on the types of products and tools that we want to have in the organization and those that we don't, right? And so that's what I mentioned earlier. We don't just accept that everybody will just be offering all the time. We run our own sort of mini process around that as well, which is don't add if it isn't required, right? If there is capability already, then we will utilize existing capability.
And if we dive into that don't add unless it's required notion, I mean, do you have a framework or a set of guiding principles that help you choose whether to adopt or retire certain tools?
Yes, I would say we do. Not so much yet on the retiring, because I guess in startup you probably shouldn't have too many to retire anyway. In larger organizations, yeah, I can totally understand that part for sure. I think we're just very for us, what we focus on more is sort of like threshold bottlenecking, right? On the ad part, that's very important. So it's decision points about whether things are useful or not useful, and that is always made with our North Star in mind, right? So we keep those priority directions, and then also whilst we're in this phase as well on dev, we really keep quite tight on the quality of the products and the shipping dates, right? So adding has to be very, very clear on quality, and it also has to not be detrimental on time, right? If anything, there would have to be a pretty significant opportunity there for us to actually pull the trigger and say go.
If we turn our attention to client acquisition and your sort of growth flywheel, Ideal essentially, as I understand it, has to win over two sets of audiences at the same time. So people with ideas and people with capital. How do you think about building momentum on both sides without outpacing the other?
Yeah. So we are appealing for people who want to undertake the entrepreneurial journey for sure. So that is the users who will use the platform. And then we are also appealing to the people who want to support the entrepreneurs through their journey. And support can come in obviously the form of capital. There is another methodology that could be considered to be support, which is that as users go through our platform, we will have a very strong referred network of vetted providers of certain services. For instance, it's quite easy to understand that every company needs CRM and accounting systems, things like this, right? So that would be one element of support. That's obviously something that we would offer through our platform. However, on the capital side versus the entrepreneur side, they do tend to be usually different audiences. Usually, it's not to say that entrepreneurs, once they have exited and they want to do another business, another company, they then also invest. They do invest. That universe does get smaller, but they are somewhat separate audiences. But in terms of a flywheel for us as a company, of course, and as a project, it's critically important to have growth on both sides, because the two parts of the puzzle do need to click very crisply together, because entrepreneurs need help in the establishment of the company, but they also need help in the access to capital as well. So I personally have some really sort of cutting thoughts about how difficult it is, really, let's be honest, for entrepreneurs in the space of obtaining funding to get either started or even to grow. It's not easy and it's not great. And so when we are promoting our project, what we are saying to people is that you can also help provide these opportunities, because if you are, let's say, an investor into the Decentralized Venture Capital Fund, that fund is only investing in the best quality ideas that come through our platform at the pre-seed and seed level, and that will help enable those people. And then clearly you will get more people applying into the idea realization platform on the basis that they understand that there is capital available. So together you will see, we will see as a company, but then also just as a general impact on the entrepreneurial space, we should see an uplift. We should see lots more. As you get more people applying, you get more people putting more money into funds, then applying and then funding. So the whole thing should really work together. And that's the reason why we want to have both of these two things together. So you may see other people doing similar things, but they won't be doing everything in the totality that we are.
Yeah. And where would you say you see the biggest acquisition friction? Is it at attracting creators or activating investors?
So to be honest, it will be activating entrepreneurs. So it is my opinion that there is a very significant amount of money that moves around the world that is chasing the correct risk-adjusted returns dependent on the different asset class, right? So there is a very obviously a very strong amount of money that is available in, let's say, North America and a couple of other countries in the quote unquote West. There is not the same level of funding available in other parts of the world, but that's not because that money doesn't want to find ways to get into those areas. It just struggles with the distribution, and it also struggles with the opportunity set. And so what we are offering clearly through our platform is that if you are coming into the decentralized venture capital fund, then you are accessing a very strong deal flow pipeline that is vetted. And so really we feel that people who are entering on the capital side should be having easier opportunities, right? Versus in other areas, not financial advice. Everybody needs to do their own risk assessment and DD and everything. So for us, I think it's easier to acquire the movement of capital.
And are there any particular channels or incentives that have proven most effective so far in terms of attracting creators or activating investors?
So if we talk about entrepreneurs, we've had more than 10,000 people use the products, and they really do like the products, which is great. And we have had a variety of different channels of distribution to grab these users, right, and to get them to start to use us. I think obviously in the beginning, what we have done is we have targeted a younger generation. The reason for that is part of this thesis that younger generations are much more aligned and accepting with the concepts of using particularly sort of bleeding edge solutions here, but also the idea that they would be trusting to put their ideas into our platform, and we're very strong on trust. So of course we keep all information completely protected. What will happen is that two people might have the same idea, right? But what we are saying is that we will help both independently, and then whoever is actually the person to actually launch their thing will probably be the ultimate winner, right? So at the end of the day, ideas are, let's say, 1% inspiration, but 99% perspiration. So we will help protect and offer that service for sure.
Our partnerships with accelerators, venture studios, various sort of ecosystems, are they part of your acquisition playbook, or are you leaning more on sort of direct community growth?
In the beginning, I would say that they are not the top of the priority stack. The main route we want to go is we're a project which is originated in the UAE, but we want to go global almost immediately. So the idea here will be using some very strong, let's say, typical consumer marketing to get our products before the correct audience.
The AI Web3 and idea realization story can sound a little bit abstract to new users. How have you approached simplifying that message so that potential users immediately get the value?
Yeah, I think if you want to be sharp about like the realities, I think that this is how we will do some of our messaging. 90% of startups fail, right? 20% failing in the first year. Starting up is needlessly difficult. Burnout is really rarely mentioned, right, as part of the startup phase. It's one of the leading causes of execution failure. So there are some very clear things that we will do to support on that side. And then just raising money, right? It's extremely hard. And the opportunity here is that you can get the support you need and you can get access to capital. So that would be the kind of the really key messages that we want to be really like hammering home with our audience.
Now, I'd imagine building that two-sided ecosystem, as you said, the entrepreneurs on one end and the investors on the other, requires critical mass. What's been the biggest insight about attracting and retaining each of the sides of that network?
Yeah. So I think the surprise really has been that even with not the full products, right, we're able to get more than 10,000 users. That's great, right? And then we have people knocking on our door, or knocking our door down rather, trying to understand when the next part of the product is going to be launched. So that's been really refreshing. And then just on the other side of the coin, and particularly in the world of decentralization, when we talk about tokenization, um, then there is really a sea change as well that's happening, right? Like I think we can start to see it now with change in regulation as it relates to the blockchain and crypto industry in general around tokenization, originating with the United States. There is a change in adoption, approach, regulation. The US has led on this side, and then other countries are now starting to follow suit. I think we have reached a turning point, right? Or rather, we've reached the edge of a tidal wave where there is about to be a whole new set of capital which is going to be unleashed. If you look at the total capital sizes and the flows that we've seen recently, there's still a very long way to go in terms of growth, and people are starting to understand the benefits that can be used and applied in these different asset classes, particularly what we're looking at, which is venture capital. But already we're starting to see it with things like obviously treasuries, but then private credits. It will definitely come to other things which will be considered to be real world assets. Things like real estate is already there. And then it will then start to filter down. Private equity and venture capital and hedge funds will be the next part of the flow. And so just what are we seeing, and what are we excited about? I'm excited about how these things will start to look and feel like not really like 5 years, but maybe like next year, when users may be able to see these types of products, let's say inside their retail banking apps, right? Like if there was, obviously there needs to be a level of diligence, KYC, and accredited investor stuff, and understanding, and all these things. But the tidal wave is about to see the big wall of capital start to move into these opportunity sets.
Clearly, an interdisciplinary product. AI, blockchain, UX, legal, governance, lots of moving parts. How are you approaching team design internally?
Team design, yeah. Well, I guess truthfully, this does start from the top. We are three co-founders. The CEO is business. I'm OO, but that's really finance and tech as backgrounds. And we have a chief legal officer, right? And it's kind of with very core intent that we have picked like this, because we understand the heavy lift that's needed around all these different things. Clearly, on the legal side, specifically, if you're talking about any country, any industry, there's a whole challenge there, right? And our CLO has already been working extensively on the build out with the devs of automated AI legal instruction and execution sets according to a whole different sort of set of parameters and paradigms. So that applies to the establishment of companies, also products and regulatory impacts. And then clearly, not only is it that, it's also on fund establishment as well, right? There's a whole bunch in there as well, which is necessarily important, that has to be taken care of, and that will be also part of our team design. But then, yeah, so I mean, obviously around everything else is we're trying to be as lean as possible, right? Like there again, if we're living our own talk, the shift or the emergence and the change, which is related to what we can call vibe coding, certainly has happened. Debatable about how long it would continue to happen for and how much it can be used, right? But the theory is there that lesser team numbers, more productive across the board, is really the way things are moving. So team design is very pinpointed in the very specific areas, and then we just try and just get expertise.
And have you found or come across any challenges when it comes to attracting or retaining talent?
Sure. Yes. I would say this probably relates to us in the early days, right? Like even ourselves, we sort of fathomed and rationalized a very sort of revolutionary thing that we thought would be very useful for the world. Of course, not everybody believed it, right? And people didn't think it was doable, that they have any type of uh, rational criticism of the projects, and so that applies to people who you discuss this concept with in the very beginning. Don't understand, not really too sure, but when you actually show them now the look and the feel, they get it. Um, but that also applies to some people, particularly some tech guys, right? Like, unfortunately, sometimes you do get the people who just want to do what they've always done, and so yeah, we did get some pushback there for sure. And just in terms of the general speed as well that we move, that's also not, it's not for everyone, right?
Mm.
It is the way in Asia. It's not the way in some other markets, right? Working, literally 996, right?
And what would you say has been the biggest learning curve that you've personally experienced in the role?
um, I wouldn't say it's a learning curve, but it just reinforces what I've experienced before. It hasn't gone away. And that is, you need to be resilient in anything you're doing, right? As we're building this, as we go, an example is just shifting technology impacts. We saw it earlier in the year with the DeepSeek moment. We've also started to see it now with algorithmic speed ups as well. What will this do to models being hosted either in cloud or local technology data holding paradigms? So these things, they constantly come at you, and so the only thing that's the constant really here is that there's this very strong expectation of continual change and uplift in the tech. And so you just got to bake that into everything you're doing, right? And so for some people, that can be a very large frustration. But yeah, we see it, and we eat it every day, right? Like this resilience challenge cake. Yeah, you've got to take your slice of resiliency every day.
Absolutely. And if Ideal executes on its full vision, what does success look like for you guys in the next 5 years?
So I think we keep everything super aligned to the entrepreneurial enablement aspect. What do we mostly care about? We care about the number of people we're helping, and also the divergency of where those people are geographically and the spaces that they're playing in for both product and industry. So in 5 years, well, even shorter than that, let's say within 2 to 3 years, I would hope that we have found some really breakout people, founders, ideas that have come through our platform, that have been started and funded by us, and then have gone on to be secondary funded at later, larger capital sizes through traditional routes, and that they can be considered to be sort of like really important case study examples about why this concept has been useful, and that it is impacting in just lots of different areas of people's lives. So that would be the first thing. And then the second thing would be that there is a really strong understanding that this element of decentralized funding for new business opportunities is a really good and strong opportunity. Clearly, there would be some really strong upside in the performance of the fund alongside that as well.
And Daniel, if our viewers and listeners want to make a connection with you, find out more about Ideal, where's the best place for them to do that?
Yeah, I mean, you can go to the website as the first port of call. So that is idea-l.com. Again, the reason why it's the hyphen idea live. So idea-l.com. Then at the top left of that page, you will see there is obviously Twitter, X, Telegram, Discord. There is a lot there. There is a sign up box for newsletter, reach out information, join the community. If you really have something burning, then please do. I think our DMs are still open, so yeah, please come and get to us, right? But then also go to the App Store, right? The App Store is available. Download the products, try it out, and then get into the program, right? And then if hopefully people get excited about the opportunities that they can start their own thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks so much for joining us on the podcast. It's been a really insightful discussion, looking at some of the inner workings around our deal, but also talking about your aspirations. We'll keep a close eye on your trajectory over the coming years, and hopefully the vision that you mentioned a few moments ago becomes reality for you.
Thank you very much, Lawrence. Appreciate the positive support.
And that's it for today's episode of the Aegance Offscript Podcast. If the conversation sparked something, a thought, a question, or a new way of seeing your own business, hit follow or subscribe wherever you're listening from. Look forward to seeing you on the next one. Cheers.